Okay, recording the attendance is Jim, myself, Mark, and Keith on the TV. Joe is our secretary. I understand we have a quorum. Before we start, any adjustments to the agenda?
Other than you may have consultants, looks like you've got one in the waiting room to let them in. They may want to listen in to,
On the TV also?
they're gonna listen in to what you have to say.
We don't need to sign them in, do we?
Nope.
Anybody's welcome to listen.
Yeah, it's public. Yeah.
I take a vote to accept the minutes of the September 26th meeting. I would accept the minutes as read.
Second.
Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye, ayes have it. The minutes have been accepted. Any public to speak? Appears not. Correspondence for the record? Joe?
None.
Reports of the commission? Other than the qualifications, that's a different subject. Talking about the engineering firm, that's a different subject.
Correct, that'll be under number 10.
Reports from the airport manager.
I have nothing other than discussion under number 10.
As so back to what you said earlier, so in the, to answer my question, the tree problem is in the RFP for the stuff that we're about to agree to.
Correct, Mr. Chair. The obstructions on the 32 end of trees are covered in a series of action items in the airport improvement plan, the AIP.
At number 1 or is it number 10?
They're
Importance.
in a couple of years out, so next year I think is, I don't have that. for you, but the,
So you're telling me for the next 2 years, something nobody can shoot the approach in the dock to runway 32?
I'm saying that it's in the AIP plan.
It just, Joe, that just seems ludicrous to me that we've been a year already, and now we got 2 more years that no one can shoot the approach to runway 32 in the dock because the trees are 30 feet too tall. 3 years, think about it.
You could have avoided all that if you would listen to me and put the runway extension on the other end, and you wouldn't have any of these issues.
But I don't know.
So why?
That's just my opinion, is if that's absolutely ludicrous. Do we even identify the trees yet?
That's where the problem lies. We've talked about this. It's what I thought was a simple issue in the beginning. It was not that
I
simple.
know, but the preferred runway is runway 32. And 5%
Are
of
we on
our,
item 10? Is that what we're on here? Or is
we're on airport reports of the commission. And we've been reporting to him every year, every meeting on these trees, so where does it fall?
It's in the AIP to be taken care of that way.
But just imagine 5% or 10% of our emergencies happen in the dark. 90% of our activity falls off runway 32.
But Larry, just as of 2 weeks ago, the approaches, we just got the new
I
approach.
know, I realize that, I saw that.
I'd like to hear this because I don't know anything about it. Go ahead, Keith.
They go right over Beauregard's property now. But that NOTAM really doesn't apply anymore about the circling at night, because now it's a straight in procedure on runway 32 and 14. So the last NOTAM from June, it was June 28th, 2021, and it expires June 28th, 23. It says 8 Bravo 0 instrument approach procedure, Stephen A. B Municipal, RNAV GPS Delta, which was the prior approach that we had, but we still have that approach in the database. It says note circling runway 32 NA at night. And so that's for the RNAV Delta GPS, which was the old approach, which we still have, but now we have 2 new approaches that are straight in approaches. One for runway 32 and one for runway 14.
Right, I knew that, Keith, but I know that also the old RNAV approach still is restricted at night.
It absolutely is. Yep, and that's what I just said. Yeah, and so we still have that approach. And I'm not sure, where they got the minimums, like right now,
Crazy low.
the lowest minimums are 739 feet. AGL.
No, on 1.4, I noticed it was even lower.
It is, and it might be because of those trees.
Used to be 400 feet AGL.
Yeah. On runway 14, the lowest minimum is 260 feet above ground level.
That's low.
Wow.
That is, yep.
That's crazy. That's not for me.
What's the approach for 1.4 now? I don't know.
Well, it's some overlay approach on the GPS so that I don't quite understand because it's new data. Keith, can you explain that?
It's a straight in approach, and it starts, if you picture a map, I'm looking at it right now, the initial fix is over like Bosebuck Mountain Camps. And it's heading a 134 all the way to the initial altitude is the floor is 6,400 feet, and it goes down to 2,080 feet, which is 260 feet above the airport elevation.
Yeah, but you do that strictly through your GPS, correct?
Exactly. Yep, it's an RNAV.
So there's no beacons or VORs or anything that you're working from, it's strictly an RNAV approach.
Correct. Yep, correct. And then the other approach, if you guys care to know, it's for obviously runway 32, which is, the favored runway, especially, we've got our northwest winds up there. The initial altitude, bottom altitude, the initial altitude 6,300, and then that goes down to 2,560 feet, which is 739 feet above ground level.
Which is higher than it used to be because of the trees, back to my point.
739, let me see.
2440 was the old.
It is, yeah, with the circling approach, it's 555 feet. You actually get lower with the circling approach.
So back to my point, the trees are still an obstacle.
Yeah.
Where does 32 stop, Keith, on this straight-in approach?
What's that?
Where does on the 14, and you said it starts at Bosebuck Mountains. Where does it start on the 32 end?
What was that?
It's, let me see. About 14 miles to the southeast. So it'd be pretty much aligned with Saddleback, over the top of Saddleback.
Is that the reason the elevation is, Keith, is it the trees and the fact that you can't, at 500 feet a minute, you can't get down to 2440 from the top of Saddleback?
Yeah, this is a 3.2 glide slope, whereas the 1.4 is probably a standard 3. Let me check.
So you're at 700 feet a minute, roughly.
Actually, the 1.4 is actually 4.1, 4.1 glide slope because of what's that, Spotted Mountain?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually more, it's greater than Saddleback. So that's a really quick descent down from Spotted Mountain.
I would have thought it was quicker off Saddleback, but you had to get down quicker.
Yeah, I get Spotted
Slightly
close.
4 miles south of Saddleback, maybe over Beaver Mountain Lake, then you could get down lower quicker.
Yeah, but it's due to the Spotted being closer than Saddleback is to the runway.
Anyway, the moral of the story is the trees are still obstructing our favorite runway. So, for what it's worth, and I just want to go on record that 5% of our accidents happen at night. 5% of us will be in light flight, but 20% of it happens at night. And if they can't shoot that approach over 3 or 4 lousy trees, somebody's gonna be very upset. Enough said, I'm done. Anything else on the manager's report? Old business, I think we just did it, didn't we? That would have been in the same septic space. Jim, old business.
No, but I do agree with you with the trees and 3.2.
Thank you. It's the 1% that we needed. We don't have it. Okay. So new business, Life Flight wants to put up a camera for weather, you said, Joe,
Yeah, they've got a grant statewide where they're working with other airports currently. to-
for only them to look at or anyone to look at.
No, it's public. If it's at the public airport, I don't think we'll be able to look at it.
So they could look at the windsock, they could look at the runway conditions.
Yep.
Uh,
I don't have any details. I invited Josh here tonight to kind of fill in the blanks, but we are on the list.
unofficially, does anybody have a problem with Life Flight putting camera network into the airport? Jim?
No.
Unofficially, he has our vote.
Okay.
Not that we have anything to say about it without a presentation, but the selectmen can be aware that we are in favor of such.
Okay.
Planning qualifications, we're gonna, Jim, I think we decided to have interviews with at least Stantec, look at their stuff and see what they have to offer instead of us doing a scorecard.
When is this gonna happen?
I don't know, but I think the scorecard thing,
Oh,
Well, you'll end up, so the commission you'll score it. You'll score these, but I think you should. If you haven't completed your scoring individually yet, wait and meet with consultants, have interviews with each. You had 3 respondents.
and how would you want to do that? Would you want to do it over the next 90 days? Or
I would do it probably over the next 2 or 3 weeks if you could.
can we have all 3 in a room to speak to us about what, or should we do it one-on-one?
I would recommend doing it individually.
That's quite time consuming.
It's a long list of projects with folks that put quite a bit of effort into the responses.
How do you guys want to deal with it? Mark,
I don't know. Haven't come to a conclusion yet.
I personally am leaning on Stantec because they know more about the airport. Not necessarily they have the best qualifications, but they're more familiar with what's been done in the last 30 years. Jim?
I just think it's gonna be tough for all of us to get together with 3 different people
That's what I'm afraid of.
over the next few weeks. I don't know. How do you guys do it? Like if you're gonna have, say something for the town, and you just, I mean, you know, it just seems like it'd be tough to coordinate everybody getting to that sort of thing. I don't know. It's hard enough getting here once a month.
Or do we get to select it? Do we make the recommendation to select it anyway?
You're gonna make a recommendation. to the board.
I'd just like to let you know that based on the printed materials that we have, there were 2 packets from each of the respondents, and I did score them because I did that in the week following my receipt of them, you know, and then I hadn't seen this agenda where it became a possibility, and I thought they all had good qualifications, but on my score sheet, a Stantec came out on top.
Is this the thing we got 3 months ago?
Yeah, it is, but it isn't. It's for a different project,
Oh, it's a different
but
project.
the same engineer.
That was a master plan
Oh, the master.
that we got. that we did this time last year.
Now,
And
this
then-
is for how long? This time we're voting for how, this team for how long? Roughly how long will this
At
vote?
least 5 years.
Okay. So Jim, have you read through the information?
Yes, I have.
Would you guys be prepared to make a recommendation to the selectmen to make a decision on one of the 3 this evening?
This evening, I'd like to review. I didn't know that either.
Mark, are you prepared to make a decision on one of the 3 this evening?
I would, yeah.
Keith?
Yeah, I mean, I've scored them, but if you guys aren't ready and you guys want to revisit, I don't know if you can do it in a week or so, if you guys want to review the material.
Do you think that it would be possible for the 5 of us board to get Joe in the next week? A 1, 2, 3,
Yeah, sure, yeah.
as simple as a 1, 2, 3, first choice, second choice, third choice. Without a scorecard? So let the select, we don't get to just make a decision anyway, the selectmen do.
They're gonna use your recommendation, you know.
So we're 1, 2, 3, they use our recommendation, right?
Yeah, so you should use the scoring sheets. that you
Right,
have.
and I just want to
This is a
confirm,
process, so
Right.
you really need to follow the process.
Right. and I just want to confirm that, I think mine was Stantec too, but I can't remember for sure, so I just want to make sure. I'm almost positive it was. Stantec.
So is it fair to assume that in the next 5 days, everybody can get their score sheet to Joe? Between now and next Tuesday, let's say, could Joe get a score sheet from all of us?
Yeah, I can do that.
Keith,
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
okay,
So are you thinking you're gonna forego interviews, not do interviews?
I don't think we have, I personally don't have the time this winter to sit down for 3 hours apiece for three different establishments.
It probably would be a half hour apiece.
Well, it's an hour but half by the time I leave in Quasic. I'd rather just, I'm leaning on my son. I'm personally leaning on my first choice. My scorecard will reference it. I've met enough with Stantec in the last 50 years to know they're a reputable outfit. I can't speak for the other two. But, so, anybody else really want to take the time to meet together the three?
It would be nice.
Well, should we see what our scorecards say, if they're close?
Yeah.
If there's any, if they're within 15%, we probably ought to visit with them. Is that? If they're not, what's the point? If somebody else gets, everybody gets, one guy gets a 90, and everybody else gets a 10 out of 10. Are they gonna change our mind?
That's up to you.
Mark,
What's Keith have to say?
Keith, you wanna take the time to meet with these guys, or you wanna go with a agenda
Well,
vote?
I think everyone should just, review all the material, complete the scorecards. And, I'm not sure if it's possible, if you guys all want to meet back up by the end of the week or early next week and discuss this. I think most of us are probably going to be very similar in thoughts. And then if we've got to take it further and do interviews, then I would move forward to do interviews after, but I would probably get the scorecards done first, and then the committee review them together.
And when do you need a decision, Joe? For the selectmen?
That's up to you.
When does the selectmen have to decide?
Well, it would be nice to get rolling on some of these projects. So the sooner we can get somebody on board, the sooner we can get going on the CIP and the trees. You know, that's another.
Can everyone get Joe with their scorecards by Friday?
I can get a scorecard by Friday, no problem. I was
I
confused
mean,
because I already did it. I thought it was the
Mine's
same.
sitting at home, I could bring mine in tomorrow if you wanted to, but
Yeah, mine's sitting at home too.
So let's visit the scorecards, Joe. You give me a call. We'll have to call everybody. If the scorecards are favoring another vendor, we'll have interviews. If they're not favoring another vendor, we will not.
That's fine. Can you send it, can you
Yeah.
send your completed cards to me so I can put
Except,
it together?
okay, Friday it is. Have your scorecard to Joe.
Well,
Keith,
let me
you can
just
do
ask
it.
you, Hank, I'm just thinking ahead, looking at the calendar. I think the selectmen meet the following Monday, so I think if we brought him to Joe on Thursday
Thursday this week.
of this week, he could look at it and see, and then if there's consensus, he could forward that to the selectmen to make a decision, and that would move things along. And if it's muddled that we need to do interviews, he could let them know that it'll be coming and that.
I can do it. I was confused because I thought I already did it 7 months ago.
Yeah, the different project,
Me too.
different RFQ. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, Thursday, I can do Thursday.
I can too. Keith, can you do Thursday?
Yes, yep.
Okay, Thursday it is. Joe, your results.
Perfect.
Okay, the fuel farm draft lease. Joe, I guess it's up to you to explain why that's in front of us.
Be happy to. So I had a call back when the weather was still somewhat warm from a company talking about tank. And it took me a minute to realize what he was talking about. He was looking for schematics at the airport. Then I remembered, okay, there's some upgrades going on at the fuel station at the airport. So I went into the computer. He was looking for underground drawings for electrical. So I went and did a keyword search in the airport folder, server, and punched in fuel tank. And what it got me was a property management plan from a few years ago. Long story short, I got the document that the contractor was looking for, but then I also discovered that it didn't appear as though there were a lease or was a lease in effect for the fuel plant. So I reached out to Keith, and he knows he should recuse himself from this, being a city member, but reached out to him, asked him if there was a lease, if he had a copy of the lease, if he knew what he knew. And it turns out that there wasn't one in effect. He does pay property taxes, I think, on that tank. I spoke with the assessor, that's what I learned. So we thought that it would probably be a good idea to have a lease in effect that protects both the town and the person at Keith that owns the fuel tank currently. So our attorney has put this together. It's kind of a model lease agreement. It follows kind of the makeup of the hangar leases. You kind of looked at that and used it for some of the same wording. You don't need to make a decision on this tonight, but I just wanted to bring it to you so you can see it. Ask me any questions that you had about it.
My concern is that flow fees typically are when the community supplies the product and the container, and an operator dispenses it. The flow fee would go the other way, and the operator would get 10 cents a gallon to do that, like Augusta, Waterville, Pittsfield. They own their tanks. Town owns the tanks, town owns the product, town takes the liability, the operator gets paid to pump it. Mark?
I was gonna say, I didn't dig into it very much. I scanned through it and I'm not up to speed enough to discuss it, but I was gonna suggest that we have the time to take it back and read it and mark it up and bring it back to our February 27th meeting and talk about it.
February 27th, I have a deal meeting out of state, so I'll have to excuse myself about that. But I'll talk to Jim or Mark about that before. I just want you to know that I don't support fuel flowage fees unless the town wants to own the tank and the product. Then the operator gets paid to do it. But upon that time, the town takes on the responsibility of all the liability of any liability of bad gas or bad Jet A, which to me, the town does not want that responsibility. That's my opinion, short. You're jeopardizing, in my opinion, having no fuel at the airport by charging any more for what little bit the operator pumps that's not for his consumption. His consumption, our lease allows him to move that tank over to his hangar and have it just for himself and no one else. When operator can have fuel in his own hangar in our own lease.
Okay.
Sorry, a sightseeing guy, for instance, doesn't have to buy fuel doesn't have to buy fuel from Northeast Air. Is that correct, Keith?
I'm not sure how the leases are, I haven't reviewed the leases, if you could actually do that or not, but obviously I'd have to, we're not voting on this, so obviously when we vote, I have to recuse myself, but you know, the draft agreement, I've read through it. Obviously, my lawyer would have to review the final draft, but you know, Larry's right with the flowage fee. That would apply to you know, I'm not sure the lawyer that drafted this up, I don't know if he knew that the fuel farm was by the city or not. And it's a privately owned facility, not you know, not state owned, not locally owned. It's owned privately. So usually, you know, we pay flowage fees. It's usually passed on to the consumer. I was looking at an invoice that we had in Jacksonville, Florida, the other night for one of the Kodiaks, and the flowage fee was 8 cents a gallon on Jet A. But you know, guaranteed the city of Jacksonville owns that fuel farm, and then Signature, the FBO that's there at the airport, manages everything on behalf of the city. So Signature takes on all the responsibility and liability versus the city, and then they pay a flowage fee.
So my concern is, if you go back to 10 years ago, the FAA felt that fuel was so important. They redesigned the fuel cell that Keith at the time had just purchased and repositioned it, put them up high and dry and rewired it as part of an airport project. They did, and they knew the town did not own the tanks. They knew at the time that it wasn't feasible for the town to own the tanks, and also knew at the time that the town probably did not want to assume that liability. My fear is we're opening a can of worms here that we are going to get either have no fuel, or the town is going to put themselves in a liability situation that they don't want. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I don't want that phone call about a helicopter that goes down because it had bad fuel. I don't want anybody. Let Keith take that call.
Yeah, but you know, the ground lease obviously makes sense, and you know, we also pay you know, property tax on the farm itself. So
You go through the lease, that's my 2 cents worth. I, as a taxpayer of the town of Ringgold, do not want that liability. And I'll fight it with banners if I have to.
You sure you guys don't want it?
Nor do our voters want that liability.
You sure you guys don't want it?
I'm positive we don't want it. Jim, you,
I guess we would stay out of it would be best,
I'm
right?
sorry,
Stay out of it would be best.
that's correct. That's my opinion. Next, thank you, Keith. Announcements. I want to announce, Keith, how's the weather in Florida?
Oh, it's beautiful. You guys wouldn't like it, because I heard Saturday's supposed to be miserably cold up there.
Oh, it's gonna be beautiful up here.
I heard.
I'll see you in Florida on Friday.
Excellent.
Um,
Look forward to it.
Yeah, Beauregard, I'm sorry, not Beauregard, I read your name, Mark, sorry. Keith did upgrade to a self-service fuel system up there at his expense. I don't want to know the number, but I know it was expensive. So now people can get fuel 24 hours a day on his liability without making a phone call to you, the town office, or anybody else, where how and who I call. Put the credit card in, they get fuel. Very simple. And Keith paid for that. Next meeting date is to be announced. I believe I have to go out of town on the 28th because I have a meeting on the 2nd in Las Vegas. And the airlines are such that you can't just go the day before anymore, or you will not make it. Know what I mean?
Keith will fly you at your convenience.
Yeah, I know. What I'm saying is, I'm afraid you can't go to the meeting anywhere that far away the day before. So I think that day interferes with my meeting schedule, but I'll check into it. But someone else can carry the mail from with after. You know what I mean? You're going anywhere today on meet, but they have to be there. The airline's not reliable.
I just got back from out west. I had 6 flights over 2 weeks and every one was on time.
But that's not typical.
No.
All right, I guess with all that said, Keith, thank you for staying on board. I would take a motion to adjourn.
Second that.
Thank you, everybody. Now that we're off the calendar, off the thing, anybody else have anything to just generally talk